Freight Tale. Written by Connor Hickman. The first book in the Outcasts bookverse. Chapter 1. Flames and Stones. It was like any normal day in London, well, the type of normal that you'd get here. It had been about 4 months since the wave hit Earth, and the people of this planet had only started getting used to weird, new going-ons. A fraction of the population began to change, scaring the greater part of humanity. Could they be trusted? No one could tell. We begin with our hero, Sky Hilling. He was a peculiar young lad, not just for one reason. He was a lanky, white-skinned boy with ginger, curly hair covering the top of his head. He was in his very early 20s, but definitely looked much younger. He strutted down the old English street, minding his own business as he thought deeply to himself. The sky was a dark blue, with the moon barely just lighting the area. The number of clouds in the sky made that certain. A few birds would be singing their song, hidden between the dark oak trees and their bright green leaves. But something would cause young Sky to stop in place, or someone. A small yell could be heard, coming from a long back alley. It was beside one of those dodgy corner shops. You could tell they sold illegal substances like weed. The amount of stoners that came out looking happy was a too common occurrence. Sky turned towards the dingy alley. A small smirk slowly grew on his face. He charged down, making fists with his hands as he made his way. Stopping in the shadows, he witnessed what was happening. The scene stood before the young homosexual. A large green dumpster sat against a moldy brick wall. Cardboard and banana peels hung out of the minely open bin. The smell was as you'd expect, disgusting to say the least. On the floor beside this dumpster was a young lady, with long blonde hair. This woman looked like some kind of posh businesswoman. Briefcase and all. Standing above her was a scruffy-looking man. He held a blade, directing it towards the victim. It was hard to make out what he was saying through all the mumbles. He was definitely a crackhead. Clenching his fists together, Sky's entire body began to glow. Orange, scorching fire began to engulf his body. His entire anatomy changed within seconds, turning Sky into a powerful flame form. The area lit up in seconds, quickly grabbing the attention of the mugger. He turned with an angry stare, shouting incoherently towards the fire hero. A small chuckle left Sky's lips before within a few seconds dashing at the criminal. Sky launched a fiery punch into the mugger's chest, causing him to fall a few meters backwards. Grunting in pain, he hit the floor. Sky jumped over to the woman, allowing his hands to return back to normal. Helping her up and away, Sky turned back towards the crackhead who had just got up onto his feet. So? Sky spoke, keeping his upper body in nothing but flames. Any reason you're out attacking ladies tonight, or are you just a dick? Shaking his head, the dickhead spat onto the floor. Get the fuck out of my way, freak. This has nothing to do with you. Shaking his head, Sky let out a small sigh. I see, dick it is. With an intense speed, the flame-covered hero charged at the mugger before unleashing another punch, but this time to the groin. The criminal fell to the floor, holding his privates as he yelled out in pain. Maybe you'll learn. Sky laughed. With one more punch, this time to the face, the man was knocked out, falling to the floor unconscious. Grabbing him by the collar, Sky slowly lifted off the ground with his flight. After 5 minutes had passed, the mugger was dropped off at the local police station. We can only hope they can now deal with him. Returning back to his normal self, Sky decided to speed up his journey by speeding to his desired location. He launched himself forward, causing a small gust of wind in his trail. Sky arrived at a small council estate where children could be seen littering the streets. Keeping himself hidden, Sky made his way to a bunch of conjoined homes. Each seemed weathered down and old, nothing new when you live in a council house. Sky arrived at the middle home of 3, opening the door to let himself in. He was quickly braced with the smell of bolognese sauce. Oh, tonight is going to be great. With 3 steps into the door, Sky was quickly greeted by a happy face. Down the stairs walked a young woman, just a few years younger than Sky. She had long, messy, dirty blonde hair. You could see she hadn't brushed it in a few days, the laziness just radiates off her. She had some curves, with her smile being her defining feature. Wearing a pair of black framed glasses, an oversized hoodie and some jogging bottoms, you could see she looked extremely comfortable. "Where have you been?" the girl groaned, giving her brother a huge hug. He returned the hug, holding her close. They were obviously close, which was nice for a change when you see siblings. "Hey, sorry Lola, I just went to see Blake for a bit." He chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Lola noticed the obvious burn marks on his clothing, causing her to look at him suspiciously. Tapping her foot slightly, she shrugged and skipped off into the room beside them. Sky took a step towards the stairs, making his way up. As he got to the top, he made his way down the corridor of his home. 6 doors were lining the hallway with 3 on either side. The bathroom door, also the closest to the stairs, was open just a bit. The site of the bathtub could be seen. It was also extremely clean, like the parents of the household were neat freaks. Sky walked past a door with the sign, "Stay Out," hanging on the front of it. Talking could just be made out coming from inside. No doubt Sky's brother Ben was in there gaming his heart away. If only he spent less time on Genshin and more time with the family. Well, Sky's a strange one. Lola gets bitchy, their older brother is MIA and their parents. Well, let's not get started there, so Sky doesn't blame him for being antisocial. He stood before his door, quickly turning the handle before forcing himself inside. Shutting the door behind him, Sky jumped onto his bed back first. He laid there for a few moments, catching his breath, letting his eyes settle on his bedroom. The walls were a dark red color, matching his bed sheets and many other decorative items. On the wall hung some posters of artists, like Ruth B. and K. Flay, as well as some movie posters. The biggest was a poster of the animated Mulan. Oh, how Sky loved Disney. It was scary how powerful they were becoming, creating their own country and all, but still, they made amazing content. Coughing slightly, Sky sat up and looked towards his PC. Plopping in front of it, he switched it on and began to look through the latest news articles from his region of London. Stabbings, drug dealers being caught. All the same common crimes from the amazing London. Sky just wanted to look for something to do. He wanted to be like those heroes from Marvel and DC. Saving the people of the universe, that type of shit. But Sky's family wasn't rich. He couldn't find himself a police radio scanner like in the TV shows and can't afford to create a powerful suit. You see, when the wave hit, a lot of weird shit happened. People began to display abilities and, as you can guess, started using them for bad. There weren't many people that tried to use their abilities for good as you'd expect, but only a few did. You'd hear about Disney having to coronet their own superhero. There would be reports of a large purple dragon flying over the streets of London. Even North Korea had their problems, with apparent projects breaking free, but they never specified what. Sky knew he had to do something. He had lived on this planet for 21 years and not once has he ever felt at peace. He had no costume or name yet. But he'll try his best to find a way to get the villains of this day and age. That's if the media doesn't notice him first. Concentrating deeply, Sky scrolled through different news websites looking for anything he could help with. As he refreshed a page, a new story quickly appeared. The tagline read, "Children's Care Home Destroyed in Arson by Powered Individual." Sky's eyes widened at the article as he read through it. He took in all the information he could as he made his way down the text. A flame-covered individual was seen sending multiple fire projectiles at the building. Multiple dead, little to few survivors. Scratching the side of his head, Sky leant backwards, letting out a sigh. Like being in a horror movie, a hand was placed on his shoulder. His body jumped, letting out a small gasp, turning towards the intruder to his room. Standing beside him was an older-looking gentleman. He was just as scrawny as Sky, but much more streetwise. He had tattoos on his hands and neck, with a few missing teeth to add to the look. It was Sky's father, looking happy as always. "What's up with you?" he chuckled, looking at his son with a grin. Sky smiled and sat up, shaking his head. Nothing." He smiled towards his father, sneakily closing the tab he was looking at. "Where have you been anyway?" Sky asked, tilting his head. Scratching his nose, his father smiled. "Just went to the pub with some of the boys. Ashley's still wondering when you'll join us." His dad smiled. "You know I'm not a fan of the pub, it's boring. Just sitting there, football on the telly and drunk people yelling." He shrugged and sighed. "Why bother when I have something better than alcohol anyway?" Sky looked towards a dirty, orange bong standing on his bedside cabinet. His father gave another chuckle and nodded before making his way out of the room. "He drinks too much, but doesn't everyone nowadays?" Sky waved to him as he left before turning back towards his computer screen. He opened the tab back up, looking for the address of the attack. After a few seconds of scanning, he spotted what he was looking for and smiled. "Time to be a hero."